And joining us to talk about all these is Tyler Yaremchuk from Daily Faceoff, the Daily Faceoff. And the guy is an Edmonton sports fixture. I'm happy that you came down here. How you doing, Tyler?
Great. I'm happy to be down here in the rink. It's a nice little setup, nice little reprieve from the heat outside as well.
Yes, it is. It's hard to believe how hot it is outside. Obviously not complaining being inside here talking hockey, but it is quite the contrast. You're right. And did you feel the relief of Canada beating Switzerland, getting into the semis? Because it was closer than it should have been.
But the Swiss almost always, like at every level, play Canada really tight in international hockey. And every time it feels like we go into one of these matchups, we're like, the Swiss will handle them easily. Then you get halfway through the game and it's like, oh no, maybe we won't. But yeah, like a little bit of relief. I mean, it would be nice if for the semis and the finals, this building got going a little bit more, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we delve deep into the World Jays and then obviously some Oilers talk and stuff, you have to tell our viewers about the Daily Face-Off and how you got involved, because a lot of our viewers, daytime sports talk, are older. They're not necessarily reading the digital stuff, but the younger ones sure as heck know. Based by your numbers, they sure know. Yeah. Very popular Daily Face-Off. And was it started by Frank Saravelli?
No, so Daily Face-Off has been around for a long time, but people always know it as the site you go to get your line combinations and who's starting in net. That's always our big draw. It's a huge fantasy hockey tool and daily fantasy sports tool for people. And basically, it's been a part of our company for a while, but when Frank came on board, we wanted to really push the written content side of it. We wanted to be a one-stop shop for every hockey fan, whether you want the line combos and the goalies for your fantasy team, or whether you want Frank's trade target list or Mike McKenna's breakdown of who's starting in net for every team on any given day. Matt Larkin is there as a full-time writer now as well, and our head editor. So it's really grown into more than just a fantasy hockey tool, which is what people have known it for in the past, and now we're trying to make it the one-stop shop. You come there, no matter what you like about the sport of hockey, we have something for you.
And it's wildly popular.
Yeah, like we do a daily show as well at noon Eastern, and that goes out as a podcast and all of that. And we're trying to have sort of every angle covered, from video shows to podcasts to TikTok and YouTube and Twitter content and things like that. And it's been a great sort of first year really focusing on the content side of things. We're excited for next year.
Do you have a city that you say that you're based out of, or is it literally just NHL wide?
Well, that's the interesting part. I mean, you with this show right now, right? You have guys back in Saskatchewan producing it for you and doing all that. The cool part when we put on a show is, it's me in Edmonton doing sort of the day-to-day producing. We got a guy in Ottawa, then there's Frank in Philly, and Mike's in St. Louis, and Chris Gears in Vancouver. And the neat part about sports media now is you don't need a home city. The internet's your home city in a weird way.
Yeah, absolutely. Trust me, I know it, and it's fantastic. So to that, what sense do you get from Edmonton hockey fans for an appetite for these World Juniors? Clearly the crowds haven't been great, and there's a myriad of reasons for that. Is there an Oiler hangover part of this, or why do you think we're not seeing bigger crowds?
That's interesting. I never thought about the Oilers hangover side of it, and last night I was chatting with some buddies, and they kind of brought that up. They were like, hard to get excited for anything right now because we just want the Oilers back, right? The city's so crazy about the Oilers, obviously. But I think there's a handful of other reasons. It's so nice outside, and, Edmontonians, you know it, we deal with cold weather 10 months of the year. So when you get this heat wave in August, the last thing you want to do is sit in an arena and watch a tournament that's just kind of being wedged into the sports schedule.
Yeah,
right?
But having said that, they're watching on TV. Your buddies are all watching, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and everyone's still talking about it. It's hard to get people in the arena in August, I think. Although, with that being said, Hlinka Gretzky, when it was here a couple of years ago, that was pre-pandemic, that did remarkably well, and that was the similar time frame. So that's why I'm still a little bit puzzled. When I saw the first few crowds for some of those prelim games, it was kind of it was jarring to look at.
It was like bubble hockey again.
Yeah,
but last night I was in a suite. Thank you again, Hockey Canada. Was some of their executives were there, and it was just, they look at the crowd and they're just, what are we going to do? We're playing this tournament for the kids. We want to get it done. And but they also would like to win it. And I guess you see, I don't know how much coverage Daily Faceoff is doing on the World Juniors per se, but some are saying this could be the greatest World Junior team for Canada ever. No, it's not at all. But they could go unbeaten. And that's a great goal to have.
Yeah, they could go unbeaten, and there's still some positive storylines from it. And you mentioned it, playing it for the kids, right? And watching Czechia do what they did last night was awesome. Seeing their reactions is great. Watching the reactions in the room of Latvia, and then seeing the individual performances from a guy like Mason McTavish, what he's doing. If this was, again, I'll say normal World Juniors in air quotes, if he was doing this in a December World Juniors, there would be statues of him around the country. Like, he's been remarkable.
He's a household name, and he hasn't played one NHL game yet.
Yeah, like the Ducks.
That's
have a
pretty
good
cool.
one there. He's remarkable.
So, for me, it's tough to talk about the Connor Bedard thing because I'm such a huge fan. What is your read on it? And I'm sure you followed the fact that he was benched Monday in the win over Finland. Nobody wanted to say it, particularly the TSN crew, but the fact is he was. And then in the quarterfinal, he was held pointless in a lot of ways. I thought he looked confused and lost out there for the first time since I've been watching him. This is his, well, he'll have another World Juniors before his draft, but they're still being watched. He's being watched very closely.
Yeah.
What do you think about his play in this tournament?
Yeah, I thought the lack of ice time was a little bit surprising, especially in games where you're probably going to win them. I felt like that's maybe a situation where you let a guy like that try to play through whatever he's going through, whether it's a mental hurdle or whatever. I'm surprised they didn't give him a little bit more leash at those points, because you're not going to give him any leash in a semifinal. You're not going to give him any leash in a gold medal game, and that's a guy who I view as important to get going. But for watching him, obviously I don't watch him as often as you would, but the highs are still so high. Like those goals he's been scoring, those are going viral, and you're always going to get that with him. But I would imagine there's a few scouts sitting here watching kind of going, that's interesting. Like there's been a little bit too much floating, I think.
I don't mind you saying it, because that word popped into my head this morning. But like when he's at the opposition blue line, when the play's in his own zone, like that's Gretzky style. And maybe one day Connor will be able to do that. I'm not sure he's yet able to play a Wayne Gretzky style, but I don't know what he's being asked to do. I just think that come these playoff games, the semifinal and the medal round, he still has plenty of opportunity to shine. By the way, Allie Girl is watching in Texas, and she says Mike McKenna is a wealth of hockey knowledge and IQ. Love hearing his takes on things. That's from Allie in Texas. Thank you, Allie, for watching. From Jennifer, she says, good morning, everyone. Although Canada came out with a win, they looked terrible. That performance will not win us the gold. I'm sure they will turn it around, though. That's from Jennifer. Interesting note, 20% of our viewers are in the United States. Almost 40% are female, and they're watching very closely. John in Edmonton has asked multiple times, why is Canada playing at 2 p.m. against Czechia? John, I don't schedule the games. I don't know. Tweet at Hockey Canada. Maybe they can tell you. I don't know why they scheduled this game for 2 o'clock, okay? Please stop asking. Do you think that nerves might have played a role in the game yesterday?
I don't know. Like, again, if there was 18,000 people in here and they were going toe-to-toe with Sweden, like, yeah, maybe. But a lot of these kids play Major Junior. Like, they've played in front of big crowds before. And I get that elimination game, World Juniors, one of the biggest tournaments you're ever going to play in your life. Like, maybe, but I don't think that should be a reason/excuse for any sort of poor play.
Mm-hmm. Well, going into the tournament, I talked to some parents of the kids, and then just as close as I've gotten to the team, you sense there's a tremendous amount of pressure on it. And some of it might have been self-manufactured, to be honest. I mean, you talk about playing for their junior teams. Yes, they played in front of big crowds, but wearing that maple leaf
different
comes with a certain set of expectations. So last one on this, do you think that the crowds, well, we might have more questions on this, but do you think the crowds will increase significantly by the gold medal game?
Yeah, I think so. Another thing, like Canada, a lot of their round-robin games started at 4 Mountain Time. So people are at work if they're not on holidays. And if you're on holidays, you're probably not coming down to the rink. So I felt that really played a big role in it as well. I think as we head into a weekend here, not a long weekend, so people still in town, I think we should see a pretty sizable uptick here. And I think the interest as Canada kind of keeps rolling on here, it should pick up a little bit. Like I would imagine it's going to be a fairly full house for a gold medal.
Yeah, well, for all the prairie people that are watching, which is our bread and butter for viewership, this is a good chance to come watch Connor Bedard live. If there's any other reason, and you mentioned Mason McTavish, who's actually playing better, but Bedard is the one that's getting all the pub, this is your chance to come in. Jack in Vulcan, Alberta says, I thought the hit on Ridley Gregg should have been penalized. I don't know. How much did you see that? I thought it was kind of somewhat incidental contact in front of the benches. More of a collision than anything.
Double IHF is weird, though. Like the officiating in it, like sometimes those incidental things do get called, and sometimes it just gets completely ignored. The one hit that caught my attention was that slew foot in the American game. The Americans have had a few players that have done some fairly greasy things.
Did you get the sense that everybody's just elated the United States is out?
I mean,
I've got a lot of
the
that.
viewers are American, but I mean, yeah.
Yeah, wow, they get it. But, hey, they're hockey fans, and they understand. And there's nothing wrong, I don't think, with a hockey rivalry that way. John in Edmonton says, I think Connor Bedard had too much pressure going into this tournament because his performance has been weak. From Gino and Okotoks, you probably know him. Gino DePaoli. He says, I assume because they're the higher seed, they got to pick their semifinal game, and probably the earlier game means more rest for the winner for the gold medal game on Saturday. Thank you for chiming in on that. Tyler's with us for a while. I'm going to switch to the NHL if you don't mind, and you don't. In the Commonwealth Stadium press box Saturday night, I was there for the CFL game. Somebody said to me, all anybody's waiting for is for the Oilers to open training camp. This is like the most riddled with anxiety offseason, I think, for a long time for Oilers fans because of the way last season finished. And I think they predict better things this year.
I think so. They did a really good job of sort of keeping the band together this offseason. I think that was priority number one. They lost Duncan Keith. That's a solid second pairing D-man, I suppose. But you bring back Brett Kulak, you bring back Evander Kane, and for the first time in the Ken Holland era, you shore up the goaltending, which is huge as well. So I think there's a lot of people excited that this is a team finally taking the step into cup content window.
There is a little bit of an appetizer of what we'll talk about next segment. Are you good to stick around for one more?
Yeah. Sure.
What's the breaking news, Clark? He just told me in my ear he's got breaking news.
Whoa.
Nazem Kadri to the Calgary Flames. I was just wondering this morning what was taking so long. Nazem Kadri, wow, to the Calgary Flames. Elliot Friedman reporting that Nazem Kadri is a Calgary Flame. And just last night I was watching all those fan and somewhat quasi-media Twitter accounts out of Calgary looking at the Flames line saying, how are we better than last year? Well, that changed in a hurry, Tyler, this morning.
Yeah, it certainly did. So the Flames offseason, they've lost 2 100-point players, and yet you might be able to say they're better than they were last year. It's one of the more remarkable off seasons and one of the more remarkable runs of general managing from Brad Treliving that I can remember in my time covering the league, being a fan of the league, because what he's done to take a bad situation where two guys say, we don't want to be here anymore, and he flipped that into making the team better. It's crazy.
It's really crazy. And listen, as a guy who spent 17 weeks in Calgary this spring and summer, I know intimately what those Flames fans are thinking. They're still not over Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk leaving. They're not over how they left, why they left. But I think with Huberdeau and his long-term extension and now Kadri today, they're going to start getting over it in a hurry. And I say with the 100-point guys, yes, that's stats. But Tyler, they didn't do anything in the playoffs. Really, they didn't. I know Johnny scored the game winner in Game 7 against Dallas, but he didn't do anything prior to that. And my point is, they've said they didn't want to be there. And that's one. Two, they're not playoff performers. They never have been playoff performers. Kadri is.
Yeah, I mean, let's go back and watch Stanley Cup final highlights together and watch that, he's OT winner with his hand still broken from the Evander Kane play that happened right over there somewhere a few months ago. Like, Kadri is exactly that. He's clutch. He's a playoff performer. I worry that his regular season stats from last season were, maybe a bit of a career anomaly. I don't know if he's necessarily doing that again when he's not playing power play minutes with the McKinnons and the Landeskog's, but he's still a darn good top six center, and he brings you that little bit of bite that you lost with Tkachuk coming out of your lineup.
I agree. And when I look at Tkachuk and the way he plays, and gosh knows you've had a front row seat in these BOA battles over the last few years, I said this is the kind of guy that you win with, but they didn't win with Matthew Tkachuk. And how long do you wait after 6 years? Kadri is now proven. He's now proven. And we haven't had any financials on this, have we?
No,
I'm keeping
an eye on it. I haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah, but so the question, I think you kind of rhetorically said in the break to yourself, you were staring in the light. You're like, are the Flames better? Did you come to an answer to that?
It's tough, but I think so. Like, Mackenzie Weegar is a top pairing defenseman. And I mean, granted, he's the one piece not signed out of that deal, but I would imagine Brad Treliving is going to find a way to get that done. If he gets that done, so they've added a top pairing D-man, they've filled the void in their top six by adding Nazem Kadri down the middle, and Jonathan Huberdeau is a 100-point guy. I think they are better. I think for a Daryl Sutter coach team as well, beefing up that blue line, it was already, before the Weegar move, that was easily a top 10 blue line, probably a top 5 blue line in the NHL. And now I think it is without a doubt the best blue line in the NHL. And you still have some firepower up front. And Jacob Markstrom between the pipes, who's a perennial top 5 Vezina guy. So I think they're better than last year. I think Oilers fans have a reason to be nervous.
Well, Randy from Winnipeg writes in, he says, Tkachuk is still the best player out of the 4 players, Johnny G, Huberdeau, Kadri. That's a matter of opinion. I would not agree for all the reasons we've just said. And the one thing came up in the luxury suite last night, Tkachuk can't skate. I'm like, get 100 points. I don't care. He was able to keep up, and he got around the net. But I think that's a little bit of Calgary people just trashing Tkachuk on his way out of town.
Yeah. Talking smack about the ex-girlfriend kind of thing.
Yeah, but you have been covering the Oilers in the National Hockey League for, you're only 24, but a long time. Let's be honest, a long time. So you know what you're talking about with the game. I watched all 5 games against Calgary, but I'm wondering what your assessment is of why and how they beat the Flames so handily.
Yeah, I think that, and Goudreau talked about this with Beat the Net on Spit and Chicklets, but I think the Flames rolling over them in Game 1 the way they did was the worst thing to happen to Calgary. Because like Goudreau said, they thought they were chilling, and they really did. And if you think you're chilling against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, you have another thing coming. And I really do think it was just the Oilers' star power taking over that series. Markstrom playing the way he did certainly didn't help, and Edmonton also got the bounces. That's something I talk about a lot when I'm keying up playoff series and things like that is, there's a lot of luck. There's a lot of luck that goes into a series. And you think about Mike Smith giving up that goal in Game 4 here from the other blue line. The air was out of this building. It was turned into a library for the first time in the playoff run. And you're thinking, Calgary just flipped the series right around. And then lo and behold, the puck bounces off Nugent Hopkins' chest, it looked like, onto his stick in the crease. And he flipped the momentum 90 seconds later, whatever it was. And it's like, oh, well, there you go. There's your bounce that you needed to win that series. So it was star power. It was bounces in a way.
And calls.
Yeah, there was some of that as well. Like, if the Oilers get the calls, their power play is good enough to single-handedly win them hockey games. So that certainly helped as well. But I will say on the flip side of that, one of the big momentum turners in that series was also a Zach Hyman shorthanded goal, which was a call the Oilers didn't get, and they turned into a break themselves. Right. So there's no denying the Oilers, they were the better team in that series. It wasn't as close, or it wasn't as big of a gap as a 5-game series might suggest. And then again, looking at these moves from the Flames, it's like, Battle of Alberta. Oh, it's not going anywhere.
That's why people can't wait for training camps to open.
How criminal is it that the NHL only scheduled them 3 times against each other this season?
Well, they'll meet in the playoffs, so it'll make up for it.
There you go.
Terry Carrier in the chat says, Goudreau had a good contract year, but the years before I felt he would disappear at times. Kadri, wow. Good signing, and I would agree with that. Just a couple minutes left because I know that you're a very busy
I'm checking to see
guy.
if the contract details are out yet. I'm itching to know what they gave Kadri.
Jason in Red Deer says also rumblings from Kevin Weeks that Sean Monahan will be traded. Take that for what it's worth. Coming from Kevin Weeks, well, he would know, but Monahan, I watched a lot of Flames games this year, and he wasn't in a lot of them battling injuries. I don't think that Sean Monahan is a huge part of what the Flames will do moving forward. I will say this about the goaltending. In the 2 minutes we have left, I'm wondering your thoughts on Jack Campbell, if it's an upgrade, even, or downgrade from Mike Smith.
The thing I've always said about the Oilers' goaltending is that they just need a solid floor. You don't need someone who's going to win the Vezina and be .935. You don't need Igor Shesterkin. It'd be nice, but the Oilers and the way they're constructed don't necessarily need that. Mike Smith, when he was at his highs, the last 6 weeks of the regular season, he was like .928, statistically one of the best goalies in the NHL. It is great when Mike Smith's at his highs. When Mikko Koskinen can be used as a legitimate backup who plays once every 8 games, once every 6 games, he's fine as well. But the issue for the Oilers was when Koskinen got overworked, he was bad. When Mike Smith was at his lows, he cost you hockey games. What I think they have now with Campbell and with Skinner, because I'm very high on Stuart Skinner, is just a higher floor. Campbell's lows are not going to be quite as lows as Mike Smith's lows, and maybe his highs won't be his highs either. But if the Oilers just get consistent 9-10 to 9-15 goaltending, they're going to win a lot of hockey.
You see, the kid is good. Tell them again where they can watch your stuff at Daily Faceoff and read.
DailyFaceoff.com, OilersNation.com is where my content kind of lives, and also the Nation Network and Daily Faceoff on YouTube as well.
All right, Tyler, appreciate you coming down, man. Appreciate you. Tyler, yeah, absolutely. Finally.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching the RP Show on YouTube. And don't forget, we're live daily on YouTube from noon to 2 Eastern. If you like what you see, hit subscribe. And if you like the program, check around for other segments of The Rod Pedersen Show here on YouTube.